dark and gloomy Finland. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about that. What I am here to talk about is the NHS is full of anti-vaxxers. The following data comes from an organisation with a positively Orwellian name. We're talking here about the UK's Health Security Agency. And this data was published at the end of November 2024. And I'll post some links to it. So according to them, only 24% of NHS workers have had this winter's flu vaccine. And even worse than that, only 14% have had the latest COVID injection. So according to the UKHSA, they're urging more NHS workers to come forward and actually have the flu vaccine and the COVID mRNA injections. So they're worried about this. So the million-dollar question is, why don't these NHS workers, like over 3/4 of them don't want the latest flu jab, and over 80% of them don't want the COVID injections anymore? You know, the ones that are safe and effective. Like, why? What's turned these NHS workers, the vast majority of them, into rabid anti-vaxxers? That's the question I want you to answer in the comments. You know, because surely these NHS workers have seen just how fantastic these flu jabs are, and you know, even better, the safe and effective COVID mRNA injections. You know, they'll you know, if you go to your GP surgery, they'll tell you just how many millions of lives these injections have saved. So it's a little perplexing, is it not, that these very same people who are telling you how wonderful these medical treatments are, but then they're dodging them themselves. Like, why is that? Surely they must have seen just how fantastic they are, so why don't they want to have them themselves? It's almost like these NHS workers know something that we don't about these flu and COVID injections. But obviously that can't be true, can it? Because that would be a crazy conspiracy theory. That would be total tinfoil hat. Now, in the last few days, I had an email from a guy that I used to play cricket with, a guy called John. And he's still living in the UK. And he's told me that the NHS is still aggressively pushing both the flu jabs and the COVID jabs. And this is interesting again, isn't it? Because, to repeat, official UK data shows that 75% of NHS workers don't want the flu jabs, and over 8 in 10 of them, 80% of them, don't want the latest COVID mRNA injection. Do you remember that saying? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Well, this ain't like that, is it? They're telling us that this is like really, really, really good. But they don't, that's their message. It's really, really good. You should have it, you should have it, you should have it. But then they don't want to have it themselves in their bodies. This is just shameful, isn't it? It just shows these people are beyond contempt. They're just unbelievable. For me, the conclusion is obvious. They know. Yeah, they definitely know what the effects of these medical interventions are. And even the people who are not speaking out about it, who are just keeping quiet, this is a great act of evil on their part. So this begs an important question, is why? Why are they refusing to have the things that they are so desperate for us to have? So I'm going to go through some reasons now. Reason number one is they want to keep their jobs. So they know that if they were to tell the truth about what these things are doing, they would lose their jobs. And they don't want to lose that. So what they're doing is basically putting their jobs, their own jobs and their own incomes and their own material trinkets before anything else. The second thing is for GPs, there are still very strong financial incentives for them to inject patients with these COVID mRNA so-called vaccines. So this is official data. I'm going to put it up on the screen now. GPs collect £7.54 for each person that they're injecting with these injections, these COVID boosters. They get an extra £10.06 if that person is incapacitated, if they're the injection has to take place at their home. Interestingly as well, there's also a £200 Brucey bonus for what they call each care home completed. Now, I'm not sure here, does that mean that if they manage to get every single one of the patients in the care home injected, they get an extra £200? I think that's what it means. So there's very, very strong financial incentives for GPs to inject other people with this stuff that 8 out of 10 of them are staying clear of themselves. They know. So just imagine the incentives that will be set up for assisted dying. You know, obviously GPs are completely moral people and they would never push somebody into euthanizing themselves because they got a payment for it. You know, that would never happen, would it? Another interesting thing, you know, about these over 80% of NHS staff, you know, these anti-vaxxers who have refused to have their latest COVID booster, they're really unusual anti-vaxxers. You know, in the sense that normally with anti-vaxxers, they're very vocal about criticising vaccines. But in this case, we've got people who are clearly demonstrating, you know, a tendency towards being anti-vaccine because, you know, they're supposed to have these injections, but they're not having them themselves. Only, you know, as I say, fewer than 2 in 10 have actually had their latest COVID booster. So they must be anti-vaxxers. You know, they're demonstrating through their actions that they're anti-vax. But, you know, what's really weird about these NHS anti-vaxxers is that they're not very vocal, are they? They're just keeping quiet about it. I wonder why that is. The answer, obviously, is that they just want to keep their jobs. You know, they know that if you speak out against or criticise NHS health protocols, you lose your job. So what I think we should do is, you know, whenever you go and see your GP, you should ask them, are you up to date with your flu vaccine, doctor? Have you had your latest winter COVID booster shot, doctor? And ask them. You know, because it's only fair, isn't it? Because they were always very interested in our health status, and they were really unafraid about picking up the phone and badgering us about having certain medical treatments. Whether we wanted them or not, we just received these unsolicited phone calls. So maybe we need to start asking them some similar questions. It's only fair, isn't it? So I saw some interesting things on Twitter. One person said, my 2 NHS close relatives are going nowhere near I'm not going to say the word, but the injections, let's say. They've used the word that if I reverse it, it would be NSIOP, despite nearly disowning me when I refused to get one. They know. They all know. And I agree with that 100%. They definitely know. They all know. And if you know and you're not speaking up about it, you are being party to a crime against humanity. Another tweet that I saw, underneath this data that only 14% had their 2024 winter COVID booster shot was, that's strange. I thought they'd all be running for the boosters as they pressurised us all to take it. Why are they now reluctant? So that's all I want to say today. So God bless. And please start talking to any NHS doctors and nurses. We need to tell them that we know what they're up to and that their silence about it, never mind their behaviour, is unacceptable. They have to stop doing things to other people that they don't want done to themselves. And that's all I want to say today, so God bless.